Well, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off, everyone. Hello and welcome. I'm Dennis D'Angelo, the Executive Director of the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center and the champion of the AFMC and the Air Force Indigenous Nations Equity Team. And today I'm serving as the moderator for a great panel that we're going to have celebrating mentoring and celebrating Native American National Heritage Month. This panel is part of our AFMC Mentoring Globally Diverse Workforce 2023 campaign, and it is helping us with our goal of creating a diverse cultural background and making people feel comfortable in the conversations about demographic diversity. But at the same time, it's going to help us open our eyes and our ears and our hearts to mentoring each other and helping expand our diverse workforce. So the observance of the National American Indian Heritage Month, or Native American Heritage Month, has its root in public law. It's in law number 99-471. And in 1990, we set the month-long observance as the month of November. So each year, the president issues a proclamation and recognition of the observance. The National American Heritage Month is observed from the 1st of November through the end of November, from the 1st to the 30th each year. The observance month recognizes American Indians for their respect for natural resources and the earth, having served with valor in our nation's conflict, and for their many distinct and important contributions to the United States. So throughout the next hour, we plan to discuss and answer questions on mentoring a globally diverse workforce, tactfully through cultural understanding, respect, and inclusion. We will also largely focus on creating environments, inclusive environments for Indigenous people in our STEM fields. And also part of that STEM field deals with technologists, those who would be the technical experts that would help us actually produce many of the things that will come out of the science, engineering, and mathematical areas. So let me take a few minutes to introduce our astute panel. And I'll just start quickly with me. I'm Dennis D'Angelo. As I mentioned, I'm the executive assistant for the Lifecycle Management Center. Previous to this assignment, I was the executive director of the Air Force Sustainment Center in Oklahoma, in Oklahoma City at Tinker Air Force Base. And at that time, I was introduced to be working as the lead for AFMC and in our Indigenous Nations Equity Team. So I've had at least 3 years of working in this area, but I'm still on a learning journey. And so today is going to be a great opportunity for me to learn along with you. So we look forward to the questions that you'll have, that you will ask our panel. And let me start out with the panel members. I'll start out first with Dr. Johnny Pulaw, and he's a citizen of the Delaware Nation, and he's also a descendant of the Chiricahua Apache tribe, the Comanche and Kiowa nations as well. He serves as the Director of Student Studies and Student Success for ACES, which is Advancing Indigenous People in STEM. In his role, Dr. Pulaw oversees the Student Success Program, where he's working with engaging in collaboration with partner organizations and coalitions and collecting data to track the outcomes and evaluate ACES student support programs to explore the impact of ACES at college in college programs. A little bit about his background in education. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in zoology from the University of Oklahoma, a Master of Arts in teaching from Cameron University, and a master and doctorate degrees in educational leadership and policy studies from the University of Oklahoma. Prior to working for ACES, he was the acting tribal liaison officer for the University of Oklahoma, and before that, he served as an instructor and dean of services as the vice president of student and academic affairs at the Comanche Nation Tribal College in Lawton, Oklahoma. So, Dr. Pulaw, welcome. We'll give you a few seconds later on to introduce yourself to the party. I'm going to move on to our next guest, and that's Dr. Maurice Godfrey, who earned his PhD in pathology and immunization from Columbia University in New York. He followed it with a fellowship at the Shriners Hospital for Children, and then he joined the University of Nebraska medical team, where he's now the professor in the Monroe Meyer Institute. He has many scholarly awards and honors. I won't go through all of those because we'll show you the bios after. But I would like to say that his awards include Chief Standing Bear Organization Award for the Nebraska Commission on Indian Affairs. He's a visionary leader in education and has won awards in that area. And since 2005, he has led and funded programs in bringing health and science education to schools and communities on Indian reservations in Nebraska and South Dakota. And yesterday during our get together, he's had some great ideas on how we could expand our outreach more so. And we're going to look forward to the discussions that we have with you, Dr. Godfrey. Next on my list is Miss Liliana Bronner. She's an assistant professor in educational research science at University of Nebraska's medical department as well. And family medicine has been a trailblazer in developing medical pathology programs or pathway programs for underserved students for over 20 years. So as a director of medical pathways at the College of Medicine, and Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Office, she fosters collaboration and equal opportunities among students and faculty. She has been instrumental in establishing infrastructure support for pathway programs for rural students and implementing outreach initiatives for underrepresented minority students throughout the federally funded agencies. In addition to this, she has served as the co-director of the Interprofessional Education Coalition in leading efforts in interprofessional team collaboration and communication training in the medical school curriculum. So welcome, Liliana. It's great to have you today. And then finally, Mr. Victor Cope is the Title IX Indian Education Director for the Tecumseh School Systems in Oklahoma. He also serves as the pastor of the Moore First Indian Baptist Church. And in Title X, he has a federal Indian Education Formula Grant Program assisting groups in providing sound and educational programs and opportunities for American Indians and Alaskan Native students. He is also a resident of the Native American Heritage Association at the Oklahoma Baptist University and a member of the Association of Racial Relations Committee for the Potawatomi and Lincoln Association, and Planning Committee for the Southwest Association of Student Assist Program. So quite a diverse background, and the folks that are here today, all of them have a great amount of information to pass on to us. And before I start with asking them to go and give some background information, I will ask that our moderators provide any information that is necessary before we start the event, kind of the rules of the road. So I'll hand it over to Brianna right now, and then you can hand it back to me after you've kind of given the briefing. Over. Okay, not hearing from Brianna at this moment, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for introductions from Dr. Poulan, Dr. Godfrey, Ms. Bonner, and Mr. Cope. So over to you, Dr. Poulan.
Dr. Johnny Poulan. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Johnny Poulan. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I think Mr. D'Angelo gave me a great introduction, so I don't think I need to share anything else about where I'm from. I want to say that with my organization, ACES, we do have a full circle mentorship program, which is awesome. And I'm really proud to be leading that. So I've been working with the mentorship program since I've been with ACES for 5 years. So it's something that is very dear to my heart, and supporting our Native students and also finding mentors for them. So that's something that's very important to me. So I'm very happy to be here on this topic, and I'm very happy to represent ACES. And I hope I look forward to your questions and the rest of the webinar.
Dr. Godfrey.
Well, first, I'd like to thank Mr. D'Angelo and his team for the opportunity to be part of this. And I certainly want to thank all of you in the Air Force for your service to our country. I'm Maurice Godfrey. I'm at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. It's been a pleasure for me to work with Professor Bronner, you'll hear from in a moment, for close to 20 years now. But I rather than talking about what I have done, I just want to convey, because part of this is to talk about mentorship. And I want to convey the power of mentorship. When I first moved to Nebraska, and it's more than 30 years now, a happenstance accident when a young man hit my mailbox early one morning and sent it across an icy lawn. And the young man, obviously on his way to high school because he was driving, stopped and rang my doorbell. And it was that moment that, well, a few months later, to make a long story short, I offered the principal of the school, I actually called the principal right away to say, wow, this young man stopped and he could have kept going, but he didn't. And some months later, I saw that there was an opportunity for students to apply for a grant to do research, someone who had never done research before. And I offered this young man that opportunity, and he came with his parents and had a chance to read some literature, write a proposal, and that proposal was funded. To make a long story short, this young man was the first in his family to go to college. He then went on to medical school. He then went on and did his residency, and now he is actually my physician as a specialist in gastrointestinal disease. So here's a chance when the mentorship of giving someone an opportunity and the power of that relationship and the importance of when you get an opportunity to take it as far as you can.
Thank you, Dr. Godfrey. So I am going to publicly apologize to Dr. Bronner because I introduced her as Miss. So I apologize to that. My mistake, but please forgive me for that. Over to you, Liliana.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And first, thank you all for your service to our country. I work with Dr. Godfrey here at UNMC in Omaha, Nebraska. And a lot of our work throughout the last 20 years has been, establishing different programs and exposing students to different areas in STEM, science, technology, education, math, but also health, careers. And in this span of 20 years, we've reached out to, hundreds and hundreds of students on Native American reservations in Nebraska and in South Dakota. And of those students, it's been exciting to see how a lot of these outreach programs that we've done has helped them solidify a future for themselves and phenomenal careers that they've been involved in. So look forward to the conversation with everyone.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate it. And Victor Cope, I probably ought to call you Pastor Cope. So I apologize for not addressing you the same way, but over to you for a few comments. Thank you.
All right. I'm hoping that you can hear me. Good. All right. Well, I'm a representative of a person that is still in the trenches with the kiddos. And that my job, when it comes to public schools, is to take care of 847 Native American school students within our district. We make up 43% of the student body. And my job is to be able to make sure, all those little kiddos make it to graduation and hopefully go to college or do something, that's going to be beneficial to our country. And so that's what I do. And I've been doing this for 43 years. And my wife and I both taught here. And we consider it a special mission for us to impact our Native American students. And so we've been doing that for many, many years. And And we've also taken part in some of the activities at Tinker Field, where we just took part in the artwork that was going on an AWACS plane earlier in the month during Native American Heritage Month. And that was exciting for our students. Our students got to be able to walk through an AWACS plane to talk, to the individual personnel that was running the AWACS plane. Got to walk on campus. Some of my students have never been. They've been by Tinker Field in Oklahoma City, but never to actually go on base. And then we also help the Native American employees group that works at Tinker Field. And we help them with some of their activities. We help them with their powwow. We also help them with, most recently, with the Veterans Parade in Midwest City. And so I took, I think, 30 of my kids, and they were on the float, passing out candy, and just saying thanks, to our veterans. But that's what I do, and just a representative of somebody in the trenches.
Very much, Mr. Pope. I appreciate it very much. Well, you've kind of heard from all of us and from all the members of our astute panel. But before we get started, I'd like to first say thank you to Miss Angela Starts, who was my envoy as I had moved to from Oklahoma to Ohio. She carried the majority of the weight of putting all of this together, and I want to thank her personally for all the hard work that she did to make this panel a success. So thank you, Angela. And lastly, before we move on to the questions that you have posed to us, I'm going to ask Brianna Russ and Jasmine Turner from the headquarters Air Force Materiel Command Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility team, and Miss Mandy Smith Nithercott, our Command Mentoring Program Managers, to just give us a few of the background rules that we'll use today, a little bit of what this whole process will look like. So I'm going to hand it over to Brianna, and she'll go through that, and then we'll get on with the questions right away. Over to you, Brianna.
Hello, and thank you all of you for being on today. Just some rules of engagement here. This Zoom is being recorded. The chat is not being recorded, so please make sure to put your questions in the chat. This recording will be posted to the AFM-CPA website under the mentoring highlight once the recording is concluded. We ask that you stay muted at all times and do not turn your camera on to save bandwidth. All panel members will plan to be on camera for the entirety of the event. And thank you to those of you who have sent in questions ahead of time. We will begin with those and then move on to questions posted in the Q&A and chat box. Mr. D'Angelo, as the moderator, will ask those questions as time allows. We may not get to all questions, so if you please provide your email, we will make sure that we get an answer to you after the event concludes. We do plan to go the full hour and end as close to 3 p.m. Eastern time as possible. And we ask that you complete the short assessment informing us how you enjoyed the panel and things we could improve for future panels. The link to complete the assessments will be posted periodically in the chat, as well as in the final slide on a QR code. And finally, we encourage everyone to sign up to become a mentor or mentee using the MyVector Department of the Air Force tool for mentoring. The MyVector link will also be posted periodically in the chat. So those are our rules of engagement, and back to you, sir. Sir, you're on mute.
It always helps when I come off of mute. Pardon me, everyone. I'd like to also thank Ms. Betsy for signing out through all the presentations. I really appreciate you doing that today, Ms. Betsy, and a smile for the team. So anyhow, with that, I'll open up with some questions. We got a few questions that get the environment going. So I'm going to start with Dr. Pulaw. And Dr. Pulaw, what resources exist that can better help our Air Force Materiel Command airmen and civilians connect with with American Indian and Native Alaskan communities? Over to you.
So yeah, there's Google. Google is a great resource for finding resources. There's also a lot of great organizations. My organization, ACES, American Indian College Fund, COBEL, Native Forward, they all have great resources on their sites to understand a little bit more about Native Americans and the students that we serve. There's also just research. You can do research on Native students. There's a great book, and I'm actually in the next edition of this, but it's called Beyond the Asterisk. And this is a great book. I recommend everyone read this. It has a great information about Native students from their journeys to high school to college. This has a wealth of information that I highly recommend as a resource, probably the #1 resource for everyone to find out more about the resources there.
Thank
And
you. Go ahead.
No, I hope I answered the question. I had a hard time a little hearing about that, hearing your question.
You did, and I will speak louder for the rest of the folks.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me know. Dr. Godfrey, anything that you would like to add to that?
The only thing is, I'm obviously not a Native person, but we've been working with Native communities for close to 20 years now. And the thing that's critical is to establish trust with the communities with whom you work. So being on the ground, going to the communities, having open and honest communications is critical to that success. And among the resources, given that the idea here is STEM and science related, there are many programs. We've been supported for all these years by the National Institutes of Health. Now it's the National Institute of General Medical Sciences, which is one of the 27 institutes. And their support has helped us engage. And there's a website which I can let you know about, where people all over the country can find programs, these science education programs that exist across the United States that are useful and are very happy to engage and be part of the bridge between the science and the community. And whether they're Native communities or other communities that are underserved, there are programs across the country that the SEPA, the Science Education Partnership Awards, that have great reach and have the infrastructure to help bridge some of the needs that you might have in different places.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Anyone want to add anything else to that answer before I go on with a couple of questions?
In Oklahoma, it's very easy to be able to connect with our Native people, since we are the third largest Native population state in the nation. And they can go just about anywhere in our state, and they're going to run into our Native people because of our high population. And then the military personnel can Google different activities that are going on within our tribes, because we have 38, 39 tribes here in Oklahoma, and they can be able to see something that's going on within our individual tribes and go and take part. And because they're military, they would be welcomed by our people, because we consider them, to be our warriors. And so in Oklahoma, it's pretty common, but I think, all of our bases and military installations around the country, they can be able to Google something that would be very close to them also.
Yeah, I think that's very important, because even though, I had time in Oklahoma and I realized that the outreach to many of the tribal members was a little easier, there are other locations where it might be a little bit more difficult. I know all of the local tribes here in Ohio now. I've learned them as well, and the outreach is a little bit different. But every once in a while, it's not bad to come back through a tribal member like yourself, sir, that would help us maybe make the outreach occur. So thank you for that input. I do have a note here from the chat, and it actually says, do the panel participants aware of the contractual opportunities that our federal acquisition regulations provide for Native American owned businesses? And basically what it does is it provides an opportunity for Native owned businesses to enter into contractual obligations with the government, in this case, the Air Force that we're talking about, and allows us to be able to do direct work. Small businesses, large businesses, women-owned businesses, and are very much the same. So there are opportunities out there for businesses to actually come in. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about the STEM piece. And what I want to do is I want to throw one over to Dr. Broner on this. And I want to ask you a little bit about, as an Indigenous woman in STEM, how have mentors influenced your career, and how has your background shaped you as a mentor for others?
Okay, so I do have to disclose that I am Indigenous. I am from South America. I did not grow up in this country. But as far as mentors are concerned, very early in my youth, there were, people that always came along at our schools, either from the communities, different types of workers, and really introduced what it was that they did. A lot of us, I think, make the assumption that everyone kind of knows what you do for a living. They hear about your job, but they don't really know about the intricacies of what that is. And for me, I always knew I wanted to go into healthcare. That always intrigued me, as I met many different people in healthcare. But it wasn't until college that I got really interested in education. And I learned that you could combine two different things, much like the military. A lot of the different jobs that exist in the military also exist in the civilian world. And I think a lot of it is to help students understand that all of these jobs as well that, exist within the military also exist within the civilian world, and the type of training that they can get to engage in those types of careers. That's one of the things that I learned while I was in college, that I could mix different things that I really liked and that I was passionate about to create a whole career for myself.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Appreciate that. Since that was kind of pointed at you, I'm going to throw one back over to Mr. Cope. So, sir, how do you feel differences in cultural and backgrounds should be discussed in a mentoring relationship? If you'd like me to repeat that, I'll be more than happy to do so.
Do it one more time, because I'm old.
That's okay. I'm speaking old. So anyway, how do you feel differences in culture and backgrounds should be discussed in a mentoring relationship? How do you think that cultural and background should be brought up in a mentoring relationship? And how would it influence that mentoring?
I think that's very important, because here at Tecumseh Schools, at our middle school, I teach a class called Multicultural Studies. We concentrate on African Americans, Native Americans, and Jewish Americans. And that has been very, very important to our students. I had one student that came back to Tecumseh, and he's been out in the world trying to be able to make a living, all those kind of different things. And he told me, he says, "Mr. Cope, I consider your class the most important class that I took at Tecumseh Public Schools." I said, "Well, tell me how." He said, "Because you taught us about a world that is vast, and that in Oklahoma, we are very small, and we don't have a lot of cultural diversity here in Oklahoma." And so I taught him and other students about, those important things. So it's very important that we have an open dialogue with each other about differences that make up who we are. And I think that's very important. And that if I can point y'all to, something current, go and take a look at, the Killers of the Flower Moon. It is a very powerful presentation about one tribe in Oklahoma and the differences that both peoples, the non-Indians and the Osage, and take a look at those different things. But it's very important that we talk about those things, because I believe I read one time that our social scientists believe that the reason we're having so much problems of race within this country right now and during COVID and is that we stopped teaching about these important things that our races, that are differences about our races, and the things that cause us to be able to be one. And that is that one thing that causes us to be able to be the same is the Constitution of the United States of America.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much for that answer. Dr. Godfrey, if I could throw, these are now coming from the chat. Okay, so I'll probably repeat them twice, but Dr. Godfrey, I'm going to ask you to start with this one and then we throw it out to everybody. So you can all jump on this hand grenade as it goes out. Buzz, I'm gonna bring your one in here. I got a couple others that we will also address. So one of the chat says, what inhibits or encourages Native Americans to pursue STEM subjects in education or to find jobs that are in industry that are related to STEM? So what inhibits or encourages Native Americans to pursue STEM subjects in education or industry? Over to you.
Well, I would say what inhibits is lack of knowledge. If you don't know what's there, if you don't know what exists, you can't pursue it. So that's where we have focused to work from really the youngest student. We have preschool programs all the way through undergraduate programs to open up the world to students, to let them know what is possible, what exists, and make it as broad as possible. One of the things that you can sort of see over my shoulder is this little square with a little orange dot on it. And that actually is not a full poster, but it's kind of a mini poster of, we have highlighted American Indians, and there's one Alaska Native, in health and science professions defined broadly. And again, we can put links for all of these out there. There are people who have all sorts of experience. The person behind me, by the way, in that image is John Harrington, who until not that long ago was the only Native astronaut. I believe he's from Oklahoma. And John was just a great resource himself, and he has an institute to where he encourages a lot of mathematics education, because that's where his strength has been. But letting students know what's possible, getting them in a laboratory setting, in a public health setting, in a community setting, where they can learn what the science is, different STEM fields, and open up these opportunities. I'll just say one. I'll add one thing to this. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Cliff Poudry. Dr. Poudry at the time was an administrator in one of the institutes at the National Institutes of Health. He's from one of the Seneca tribes in upstate New York, and wondered about what he would do when he grew up, when he was in school. And one of the things I asked him, what lesson, what would you pass on to students today? And he said, whatever you do it well. It doesn't matter what, even the most menial job, whatever it is, do it well. People will notice, and more opportunities for you will open up. So that's what I would encourage all of you when you're working with students. Give them opportunities, and then encourage that to be done well, and then reward that with more opportunities.
I'd like to add to that, and it's things that encourage students that go into STEM. A lot of the time, I love that expression that a lot of people use, and it's that people can't be what they don't see. And just allowing students to see the variety of jobs that are out there. What jobs do you all have that are sitting there in your chairs that are so unique? And the things that really encourage Native American students to go into STEM is trying to figure out what is that one field, one thing that can help their community. That is huge for them. It is huge for them to see that it's like, wow, this really cool job could help my community in this way. In what ways could you see what you're doing as you're listening to this panel presentation and what we have to share? What are jobs that you're doing that could really help others in other communities and share some of that wealth of knowledge? And if a student doesn't know that you're out there and that job is out there, it's really hard to see. Dr. Godfrey and I, part of, that poster that's out behind him is a series of 10 different series of posters that we have of 5 individuals per set that feature people in different STEM fields. And we produced those because we saw that in our schools in reservation communities in Nebraska and in South Dakota, there were not a lot of role models in STEM fields that were posted in the schools. And so we found individuals, told them what we wanted to do, and people were more than happy to share what they did for their jobs and want to be featured in these posters as role models. So a lot of these things that are encouraging is just letting students know that these jobs exist.
Thanks very much. If you hadn't said the piece about you can't be what you can't see, I was bringing that up because you said that yesterday, and it is really great, Doctor. Thanks. Hey, we've got a lot of great questions coming in. Bear with me because I'm trying to blend a couple questions together so that we optimize the time we have. So first of all, I will ask, Doctor, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to continue with that,
Yeah, sure.
what they had said. I think that's awesome about, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And that representation is so important. What we do with ACES is we have monthly webinars for career readiness, and we bring in an Indigenous STEM professional from various STEM professions, and we just sit them down and just ask them, what got you interested in this? How did you get started in this? What inspired you? What's the best part of your role? And that exposure allows our students to see those roles that they've never seen an Indigenous person in. And that makes a big difference. From that, we've had students want to go into those majors of STEM. And we do that monthly. So everyone is welcome to attend those if they like. I encourage you to do that. Also, too, we have a curriculum that I designed, and it includes that career readiness section. And we do have those connections to tribal nation building that Liliana was discussing. And what we do is we share all these different STEM fields, but one of the most important parts of that is that we connect the dots in how those fields can help their tribal nations, because that's the #1 growing reason why students go to universities and to college, because they want to help and give back, reciprocity, give back to their nations and help their nations grow. And so by connecting those dots of what these STEM fields can do, by seeing that in person and in reality, they can actually understand what those fields do and how they can help them on their journeys and why that's important for their tribal nations. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, Liliana.
And I'd like to mention too that the biggest deterrent for me of helping my students to be successful is their parents. Their parents, some of them they didn't even graduate from high school. Some of them didn't even finish the 8th grade. Many of the parents, they're working so hard just to be able to keep the lights on and food on the table. They don't have, a whole lot of time to be able to encourage their students. And that's why we try to be able to give, our students as many opportunities as possible in Tecumseh. Just like walking through that AWACS plane, some of the kids says, "You mean I could be able to do something like that?" I said, "Sure." And then also, I have brought in my cousin many times, to our school. His name is Burke Thorpe, part of the famous Thorpe family. And he builds parts for the military that are obsolete. And so he does that, and that's a Native American business. And whenever some of our kids see, that an Indian is doing something great, he's got his own business in Oklahoma City and doing work with Tinker, that spells volumes for my kids when they see, a Native American hero, front and center.
Thank you. So I'm gonna carry this theme a little bit more, but first I'm gonna shoot out to one of the guys who wrote a question. Buzz wrote the question. He'll know who he is. Who said, "Hey, do they know about the FAR program in businesses?" Victor, you just brought that up and you just proved it. So thank you very much for bringing that example up and giving us an example of a Native American-owned business that did work with the government. So we've been talking a little bit about all the ways that we can engage. A couple questions have come in, and I'm going to blend this one a little bit together with what we're already doing. It says, do we think that elders regarding the public school system, particularly STEM, do the STEM fields create conflict with traditional Native American values? I'll repeat that. Do the STEM fields create conflict with traditional Native values? And I mean, you could answer that as a 0 or 1, yes or no. But really what we'd want to know is how, if it does cause a problem, what things can we do to make it so it isn't a problem? And I'm just going to open it up. Anyone can jump on that one. And if nobody jumps on it, Dr. Poulain is going to be, Poulain is the first one I'm going to. So no offense. All right.
No offense taken. I like that question. And I would say yes. And I think it doesn't have to be so. I think in these non-Native institutions, you have to look at who they were designed for. They were designed for white men. And those days have gone on, and we have Native students now in higher education. And so a lot of our Native students, myself, we come with traditional knowledge from our grandparents. We were taught about these things from since we were born. And you have to remember too, that Native Americans, this is our land. We were the first ones here, and we understood this land and everything about it. We were the first scientists here. So our knowledge is very valid and important. And so our students come with that knowledge to these institutions, these non-Native institutions, where they are oftentimes told that that is not true. And to me, that's a big conflict right there. And that has to go with these institutions understanding that the students that they are teaching come from very diverse fields and from an ancient history of knowledge that their ancestors taught them. And I think that's where it starts with. So yes, I do agree that they conflict, but it doesn't have to be that way.
I would like to just give you an example. The Blackfeet Nation in Browning, Montana, they were approached by a very large windmill organization. And the Blackfeet Nation, it became a very big problem for the tribe. The young ones wanted that because there's going to be a lot of money. The older one says, no, it's going to ruin the scenic view of our mother. And that's the way they looked at that. And I believe the last time they took a vote, the elders won because they did not want that kind of technology ruining their reservation.
If I can jump here, given some of the experiences that we've had, obviously, as I mentioned, I'm obviously not Native. Here, Dr. Poulain showed a book before. I don't know if you can see this. Research is Ceremony, Indigenous Research Methods. We try to bring in as many Native researchers or elders to help drive our programs so that when we're working with Native youth, we're bringing the perspective from the community as well. And that's an important aspect in the whole mentoring process as you begin to look at or design programs across the Air Force to try to engage with Native communities, always working with a Native community to be able to do that. And that's important. And bringing in the elders is very important and something that we have looked at proactively in engaging. And one of the stories I mentioned when we had our little call yesterday was when we working with one of the tribes in Nebraska, the Omaha Nation, the first question was, what do you want from us now? And you might hear those kinds of things. And to make a true open communication and partnership is to say, we don't want anything. What can we do together? How can we work together to advance the needs that may exist in your community? And given the fact we work with 7, 8 different tribes across Nebraska and South Dakota, the needs vary. They're not all the same. And one of the very first lessons that we had back in 2005 and working with now the Great Plains Tribal Chairman's Health Board was to remember 500 tribes, 500 languages, 500 cultures. You're working with a lot of different people with different ideas, and that is what enriches everybody.
Right. I have to agree wholeheartedly with that. I mean, American Indian knowledge and all of their related innovations and goods and technologies have had huge impact in medicine, engineering, astronomy, and math are just as indigenous to the Americas as Native people were who practiced them. And I recently heard that there was like more than 50 present day medications that were developed by examining just the use of plant extracts that were used by traditional native medicines. I mean, there was like Olmec people of Mesoamerica. They were the ones who created rubber. Rubber is in so many things. Andeans, the region where I'm from, they developed, complex and extensive road networks and suspension bridges that distributed foods and resources across, all of their different territories that, expand, 6 different countries now in South America. And, indigenous teachings and traditional, both new, present solutions, there's issues that need innovation. And I really think that the more that we help students understand the legacy that indigenous people have left and their scientific advancements, and I think if they can see themselves represented and their communities represented in the classroom, in talks that people who come to talk to them, ultimately I think that they can benefit from learning about that and being encouraged into these types of careers.
There's a book, I was trying to see if I had it on my bookcase, but I don't. I think it's at home. But it has a very curious title. It's called Indian Giver, and it is a compendium of a lot of the things that Liliana was talking about in scientific advances, and she has it right there. Indian Givers, okay. And there we go. Tag team work perfectly. Thank you. But I got another book that is a great resource.
So I've got a couple more questions here, and then I'm gonna end with one that came out of a lady named Kay, or a person, Kay Hughes, which basically says, how should we address Native Americans? And we'll answer that at the end. But from your standpoint, any one of you, do you think that what do we think either is holding back Native Americans from getting into STEM fields or all that? Is it the access to it? We kind of talked about those things. We said, hey, sometimes you can't be what you can't see. But are there other things that may be holding us back, such as technology or access to technology by those in tribal areas where they can't get access? I know that when I worked in Oklahoma, we felt that if we just put something out on the internet, everybody would be able to get it and compete for a job. The problem was not everybody had that type of access. So we had to change our viewpoint and how we did things. And I would like to hear your inputs on things that you think that maybe those people who don't quite know, might be surprised of it in the way that we would be able to engage with those Native Americans around us who aren't working with us, but we'd like to. Over. Victor.
So often,
Okay, Dr. Pulaw, go ahead.
oh no, I'm going to let my elder go first. And I mean that in a very respectful way.
Yes. Victor, I think you're on mute.
Oh, so I'm the elder. All right. Yes. Can you repeat the question one more time for me?
I can. So that we wanted to know what things inhibits people from pursuing STEM subjects. Are there things that on the tribal lands that we would assume that everybody has, but they don't? So just access to those STEM fields might be an issue. It could be computers. It could be, a lack of outreach. I think we've kind of danced around it, but I want to kind of congeal that together. Are there other things that cause us not to be able to engage? Over.
All right. I think, many of our students are just not pushed that direction.
Mhm.
And what Dr. Pulaw is doing, with his organization, that has helped our state tremendously to be able to let our kids know that there are opportunities out there. Going, to Tinkerfield with my students, they can be able to see, that there's some things that are out there that they might try to be able to engage in and also try. And then we, as Indian educators in the schools like JOM and Title VI, and then just regular classroom teachers that are Indian, we need to push a lot harder and be able to encourage those students. I have one student right now. He is a sophomore, and he is off the charts. He will be our top student whenever he graduates, and he's a full-blood Indian boy. And he is very, very curious. And so I think we need to be able to create more curiosity for our students and let them see. One of my students went to OBU the other day and to visit that school, Oklahoma Baptist University. And she said, "Mr. Cope, guess what I got to do?" I said, "I have no idea." She said, "Well, we were talking about different careers and medicine and all that kind of different stuff. We had the opportunity to be able to taste our urine." I said, "What?" I said, "Tell me about it." She said, "Yeah, our teacher was telling us, about different laboratory techniques and, doing different tests and stuff." And that student was amazed that the teacher asked them, to go to the restrooms and urinate in a cup. And that they came back and the teacher did it also. And then what he did, he smelled his and then tipped it up. And so we have to be able to create, more opportunities for our kids to actually go and do that. But now, since we're out of COVID, I think we can be able to do that a lot better because we shut down everything during COVID. And now we can go back, to doing some of those important things. Tinkerfield, right up the road from us, and to go to other places and to be able to send them to Dr. Pulaw and let him, get his hands on them and, try to encourage them, because we got a lot of smart Indian kids out there, a lot of smart Indian kids. They just can't see, just like, was said earlier, they haven't seen the possibilities.
So Dr. Pulaw, I'll throw it over to you, and this will kind of bring the questions to a close. I have one small question that I'll ask, and I will ask it of you, Doctor. Over.
Oh, yes, I absolutely agree with Mr. Cope. I think those opportunities, they just need to be presented. You never know what's going to spark someone's interest and set off their whole career. And unfortunately, our Native students don't always get those opportunities. Mr. Cope's right. Like, we have amazing, brilliant Indigenous students. And I love to see the light bulb go off when we do different activities with them. So ACES provides STEM days. We have a NASIP science fair coming up at Oklahoma State University. We have a Spark program, which allows coding for our young people. And to see them do coding, that's amazing. And they love it. And so all of those opportunities, they wouldn't happen unless someone went into that classroom, someone met with those students and told them, you're brilliant, you can do this. And I think that spark is definitely needed for our young people. If you can do anything to help out our young people, like, do it. You never know what's going to inspire them, what's going to encourage them. And they're so amazing. Like, I tell them all the time that, what they're doing, they can do anything they want. You can go into space like Mr. Harrington, you can do all these things, become a doctor. I just think they need those opportunities to reflect that. And I will say, we do have these amazing students, but oftentimes college can be, it can be hard. And there's things that I've written about in my dissertation, in my research, about what are the success factors, what contributes to success. And one of them is role models and mentors. Another one is that community of support. They have to have those support programs at their institutions that allow them to, get the tutoring, get the advice. If they need somewhere to go, they can go there to get some help and support, whether it be financial, even food sometimes. Those things are very important at these institutions because oftentimes they're the only Native student at those institutions, and that's very hard. So we need that extra support for our Native students. We encourage them and we get them to go there, but oftentimes, it's so difficult for them there once they get to those colleges and universities. And so those college and universities really need to provide that extra support for our Native students. It can be very isolating there. And that can be a challenge. So those are the things that, yes, when they're young, I do want them. I think it's so important that they have that spark, but also too, when they get to college, I think it's also important that our institutions provide that support for them because again, they're brilliant. They have such promise, but they really need that extra care and support when they get there.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Pulaw. Let me ask you a question. If we who are not from indigenous tribes were to address the broad Native Americans, would we address them as Native Americans, or is there a better way for us to address all the tribal nations as one when we speak? Over.
That's a very complicated question, and I think we're going to have a difference of there's all kind of differences of everyone has an input. I want to share what I remember the question from yesterday, and I included this in my dissertation. I included a glossary of terms. So I want to share and read what I wrote in my dissertation research. So this is me addressing that at the very beginning of my dissertation. I use the terms Indigenous, Native American, American Indian, and Native interchangeably. Each of these terms refers to the indigenous peoples of North America and those who identify as Native American or Alaska Native, to also include members or descendants of both federally and state recognized tribes. The terms listed are used interchangeably to reflect the relationship that Native people have with the US government as both a racialized and political group, and to also reflect their sovereign right to identify themselves.
Thank you for that. I think if you would allow us, maybe we would share that later on. What I would like to do now is we're within about 3 minutes of closure, and I would just like to tell you all, wow. I've been doing this for a while, and you really opened my eyes and my heart to a lot of things I had not thought of. I'm also getting chats from folks who are in locations and saying, hey, we'll open the base to you. We'll do things like that. Well, the chief of staff asked us to do this, not just for any one group, but for the whole group. And this is even more so. So I think there's going to be some opportunities afforded at different locations for our Native Americans, indigenous tribal members to come on base and have an opportunity to participate in some of the things that we're doing. We're going to also educate teachers and all that so they can help us outreach as well. But I think today I would like to thank each one of you, Dr. Pulaw, Dr. Godfrey, Dr. Broner, and Pastor Coate. I thank you very much for being here today, taking time out of your busy schedules to help give us information that we would not have had we not had you here. So my hat goes off to you, even though I'm not wearing one. And I thank you very much for the time and energy that you put into it. I would like to thank all the people who put this together, especially the folks who did the signing for us today. Thank you very much for being here and making it so that all people could participate. And I will end with this. This is actually an African proverb, but I think it stands firm here as well. The African proverb, as I was taught, it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And together, we will go much farther than we would have if we went alone. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for what you bring. And thank you for what you'll do in the future for us. And with that, I'll pause for a few seconds in case anybody else in the team has to jump on and say any closing remarks. Otherwise, we will go ahead and close out. Hearing none, thank you all. And thank you for participating today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat, and Brianna and I will get back with you as soon as possible. To our panel members, thank you again.
Thank you.
Closing.
Thank you.